Good morning. Today we continue in Genesis chapter 30, verses 25 through 43. And this falls directly after the birth of Joseph. With Joseph born, something begins to shift in Jacob's heart. In verse 25, Jacob tells Laban that he desires to return to his own country. And I want to point out this is pretty significant. For years, Jacob has served Laban. And now he begins to think about the land of promise. God's covenant purposes are stirring again. Yet even when we sense it's time to move forward, circumstances often require wisdom and patience. In verses 26 through 28, Laban responds by asking Jacob to stay, admitting that he has learned by experience that the Lord has blessed him because of Jacob. This is an important testimony. Even in difficult environments, God's presence in believers' life becomes visible to others. Laban recognizes that his prosperity is connected to God's blessings on Jacob. In verses 29 through 34, Jacob proposes an unusual agreement regarding the flocks. He's asked to receive the speckled and spotted animals as his wages. Laban agrees, thinking the arrangement favors him. On the surface, Jacob's portions do appear smaller and less advantageous. In verse 35 through 36, Laban attempts to manipulate the agreement by removing many of the animals that would naturally produce Jacob's share. Once again, Jacob finds himself in a situation marked by deception and really unfairness. But this time, the outcome will not depend on trickery. In verses 37 through 43, Jacob uses a breeding strategy involving rods placed before the stronger animals. While the method may seem unusual, the larger truth is revealed later in Scripture. God is the one who increases Jacob's flock. The result is that Jacob becomes exceedingly prosperous, with large flocks, servants, and even camels. What began as disadvantage becomes abundance. And this section teaches us an important lesson. God's blessing is not limited by our manipulation. Laban attempts to control the outcome, but God overrides the unfairness. Jacob's prosperity does not ultimately come from technique, but from divine favor. God honors his covenant, promising to bless Abraham's line. And as always, we can see how this passage points us forward to Christ. Just as God prospered Jacob despite his injustice, Christ triumphed despite betrayal and opposition. The human schemes cannot overturn God's purposes. When God determines to bless and fulfill his promise, no manipulation can prevent it. Today, if you find yourself in an unfair or difficult situation, resist the temptation to respond by manipulating or having some bitterness in your heart. Walk in integrity. Do your part faithfully and trust that God is able to bless and sustain you beyond what others may try to withhold from you. Remember, God's provision is not limited by our control. God bless.